Okay, hello. How you doing? Hey, so now today what we're talking about is more adding and subtracting rational. Your assignment's going to be to do 4.5 plus we're going to do a quiz review because you do have a quiz coming up where you're going to do these rational numbers quiz, okay? So that's what we're going to do later in the week, okay? Then you should expect to see after that we're going to do 4.7, which is more review. So we're really just trying to give you practice with this, give you some more examples with this, and help you with this, okay? So let's see how this goes, because remember, all we're talking about, really, it's all sixth grade math, except for, now you're having positive and negatives. I mean, ultimately, if you look, what you're doing is you're going to remember that you got to find the greatest common factor, least common multiple you got to find the least common multiple of the denominators. From that, you got to convert the fractions. From that, you've got to, once you convert it, then you have the same denominator, so you're just adding the numerators, and that's where it becomes new, because now you have positives and negatives. So really, we're doing everything you've done before, or seen before, and then we're just adding positive and negatives. The only difference is I've shown you how to use a prime factorization, use your hundredths chart. If you use that, if it's accurate, then you've got this, and this should be simpler than it's ever been, and you're practicing using that. But really, honestly, however you get your common denominator is what you're going to do, however you're going to do it. Okay, let's look. So if I look at this first one, I got to get ninths, I got to look at 3 and 9. I look at 9. 9 is 3 times 3, and 3 is 1 times 3. So they have, in this situation, they have the 3 in common. So that's going to be the greatest common factor. But they really kind of have everything in common, because then you just take that. That's the only thing that it has. So then the least common multiple is going to be the 3 times whatever's left over, which is 3. So it's 9. So this is already done, right? So we're just going to change this to ninths. That means we multiply the top and bottom times 3. So now if we rewrite this, then all we have is on the left, we're going to have negative 8 ninths plus 6 ninths. Now this is how you got to be careful here, right? Because, I mean, I had to delete this at first because I put 6, 6, which would have messed me up, right? But not much, because I'm going to just put ninths on the bottom, right? And then I'm going to say I have a negative 8 plus 6. So here's where it becomes 7th grade math, because now you got to look at it and say, well, what is negative 8? If you start at negative 8, and if you're going to add 6, you go to the right. So again, I mean, if I were you guys, I would make sure that over here, since you know you're going to be adding and subtracting integers, right? Then go ahead and add what we did before. We said if you add positive 5, you're going to go to the right, and if you add negative 5, you're going to go to the left. I would put that up there just to because like one period just did that overwhelmingly on a test, and they seem to have it pretty solid. So you're going to just put, well, I'm adding 6 this way, so I'm going that way from negative 8. That means I'm going to land at negative 2, so it's going to be negative 2 ninths. Now, hopefully you're doing some prediction. If you look at this, this is about negative 1 plus 2/3. So your answer should look like, so that's 3/3, right? So negative 3/3 should be, plus 2/3 should be about negative 1/3. And, that's close to negative 1/3. So really all we're talking about doing here is that you're going to just do the same thing you did before in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And if you struggled, hopefully you're asking questions enough to where you don't struggle anymore. All right. Or maybe the struggle's real. You're just going to have to figure out how to persevere through this. That's all right. We know how to do tough things. Okay. And then you just have to, when you get to this point right here, all right, that's when you're going to be, if you look at this, that's when it became 7th grade math, because you had to figure out what your numerator was by adding integers. Okay. So here, just go ahead and do these 3 problems. of your own. Let's see what you come up with for answers. And then we'll move on to the next one. And I'll tell you what, if you don't get these right, then go to the next, fast forward, or when you get done with the next set, if you don't get them right, fast forward to the ones that I explain how to do them right, and you'll figure out where your mistakes are. If you didn't do them right and you made a mistake somewhere and you caught the mistake by just looking at the answer, hey, that's good too. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do these. Hit pause right now. You're going to do these three. See if you know what you're doing with them. Hey, if you know what you're doing with these, you're probably going to do all right on the quiz. All right, so hit pause and let's see what you do. Okay, so when we look at this, then you should have gotten for this problem, you should have gotten negative 2/21. For this problem, you should have gotten positive 1/8. For this problem, you should have gotten negative or positive 6/55. Okay, if that's what you got, then you're on the right track. You know what you're doing. If it's not what you got, then look and see if you can figure out where you made your mistake. If you can't figure out where you made your mistake, well, when I get done with the rest of this part of the video, fast forward and see the explanation. But if you can see where you made your mistake, hey, you learned something right now. Okay, so let's look at these two. These get a little different because we're doing that. We have two eyes and a nose, right? We're subtracting a negative. So if we looked, we would just say, well, we're going to change that to its opposite. We're going to add the positive. That's all we're doing. Now, this is now just a 6th grade problem, right? Because now we just have 5/8 plus 3/5. Now you're talking about 5th grade math, probably. Okay. So, but simplify that. This one, the thing you have to remember with this is that you have to make this improper. You're going to want to make that improper because these two the two fractions don't evenly separate out, and they're not both negative, not both positive, but you're adding them. So someone's got to win out. So really, you're better off to make that usable and then give them a common denominator. Okay. Let's look at this one a little bit. So if I look at this again, I'm going to look and understand what 3 2/9 should be as a usable number. Okay, so again, like I showed you in previous videos, so if this helps you, write it out. I actually saw a student using this as they were explaining to somebody else, so that's wonderful. So now if you look, we have 3, right? There's 3 and 2/9, which is actually 9/9 and 9/9 and 9/9 and then 2 more 9ths. So this is where you get that rule of 3 times 9, because there are 3 9s, right? 3 times 9 plus the 2. That's where it comes from. So that's going to be 27 plus 2, which is 29 ninths. So we're going to say this is negative 29 ninths plus 5/6. Okay, now what we have to do is figure out the least common multiple between those. So if I look at 9 is 3 times 3, and 6 is 2 times 3. What do they have in common? They have the 3 in common. What's left over? They have that 3 and the 2. So that's going to be 18. So that's the least common multiple between the two. And I have to take 9 times 2 to get 18 and 6 times 3 to get 18. So So that tells me I'm going to come over here and say this is times 3 over 3. And this is going to be times 2 over 2. So I went up with negative 58. This is where you use your multiplication table because you don't want to be making that mistake. You want to be using that multiplication table if you're being careful. 18ths plus 15 18ths. So again, it's all over 18. I'm going to have negative 58 plus 15. Do that on a number line. If I'm at negative 58 and I add 15, I'm going to go to the right. 0 is 58 from negative 58, so I'm not making it there. So I'm going to wind up on negative 43. Means I have negative 43/18. And that is an acceptable answer because 43 is prime. And I know that if I have 43 and 18 is 2 times 2, 2 times 3 times 3. They don't go into each other, so it can't be simplified. But so some of you still might be confusing the word simplified with rewritten. See, that is simplified. It cannot be simplified, but it can be rewritten as a mixed number. So if you rewrote that as a mixed number, some of you just do the division. I don't care what you do with it. I'm going to help you understand that I'm going to say that if I have 18/18 plus 18/18, that's 36/18 plus 7/18. This is 2 and 7/18. So that's my solution to that. Oops, better not forget something. You notice what I did? I dropped the negative. I fulfilled Bruno's prophecy. Be careful. See, I have the negative there, but when I went through the conversion, as I got busy thinking about what the fraction meant, I forgot my negative. So be careful. That's what's going to happen. So that's how it goes. Okay, let's see how you do on these next problems. I'll tell you what. We're going to do these 3 problems in class. Okay. I want to know if you know how to do this. So I will have the answers for these 3 problems in class. So if you think, hey, I'm done for the day, I don't want to do this anymore, that's fine. Just take the rest of the time. All right. You went through, did those other problems, you checked them. That's probably took you the 15, 20 minutes. If you want to do these right now, hey, go ahead. Okay. Matter of fact, I tell you what, you do that last one because it's a little bit trickier just because you got 3 numbers you got to figure out the least common multiple for. But it's not that difficult. And you got to do 3 numbers on a number line. That's not that difficult. And let's see how you do. Okay. So if you do this one, I'll put the answer down on this one. But if you're done, I'm going to do the extended explanations of the other ones up above. So if you want to do these, hit pause, do this problem. I'm not going to give you the answers for these 2 until you come to class. Okay. All right. Okay, well, so if you are done, you've getting these right, and you get this last one right, man, you're golden. Just come to class ready to get this stuff all caught up. You're going to have the whole class to work on this. Okay, good luck. Have a good day. Okay, and this one should have come out to be 17/24. Okay, if you know what you're doing, hey, you're done. If you don't know what you're doing, well, go fast forward to the ones that you don't understand how you got it wrong. Okay. Okay, so let's look at this one. This one, you would have looked and said, oh, they're relatively prime, right? Because they don't have anything in common. Okay, the only thing they have in common is the brother nobody talks about, the 1, right? And so that means we're just going to multiply both sides. You know, and if you're really, really, really getting tired of this, you want to have a little bit of a kick, hey, put me at double speed, see what my voice sounds like. Okay, so we're going to multiply this by 7 over 7. And we're going to multiply 3/7 by 3 over 3, because 3 times 7 is 21. And they're relatively prime. So if they're relatively prime, you can do this. You could do this with any fraction, but if they're not relatively prime, you're going to have to simplify more. Okay, so when I look at this, now I'm going to rewrite this. This is 7/21 plus negative 9/21, right? Because I rewrote this as addition, which means I have 7 plus negative 9 over 21. And if I look on the number line, okay, 7, I add negative 9, I look over, that means I'm going to go to the left. So if I go to the left 9, I'm going to go past 0 and land on negative 2. So this becomes negative 2/21. Because I'm going to be really honest with you, this one, I don't even know if I do this, because I know 4 goes into 8, which means that's the least common multiple is 8. So I'm just going to multiply both sides. I'm going to make this one 8, so that means I got to multiply 2 over 2, which means I'm going to have negative 5/8 plus 6/8, which means I'm going to have negative 5 plus 6 over 8. That means I'm going to start at negative 5 and add 6, which means I'm going to land on positive 1, because it only takes 5 to get to 0. So I wind up with 1/8. Good. Okay, so again, these two are relatively prime. When I look at it, I say the only thing they have in common is the 1, the brother nobody talks about. So their least common multiple, their greatest common factor is 1. The least common multiple is the product of the 2. So if that's the truth, then when I look at it and say, I'm going to multiply 6/11 times 5 over 5. And I'm going to multiply 4/5 times 11 over 11. Which means I'm going to wind up with 44 55ths plus negative 30 55ths. Which means that's all over 55. I'm going to have 44. Now I'm just going to keep it at subtraction, because 44 minus 30, well, why make it harder than it has to be? That's just going to be 14 55ths. So you notice that I made a mistake, but I'll make sure that's on the quiz. So if I look at this, if I want to check and see if this simplifies, this is where I try to save myself from Bernoulli's prophecy. First of all, this is bigger. So if I look at the number line, I was at 44 and I went to the left 30. So I'm not getting the 0, so it stayed positive, right? And then if I look at 14, that's 2 times 7, and 55 is 5 times 11. They have nothing in common. It doesn't simplify, it stays there. Now, look, I don't even know what I did wrong on this one, because I erased it all. But trust me, if I'm doing it fast and I can make this mistake, do you think you can make this mistake? So you gotta be careful, all right? I catch my mistake. Hopefully you'll catch your mistakes. Okay. All right, let's look at this last one. Okay, so if I'm going to find, for my greatest common factor, I'm going to look at 8, 4, and 12, right? 8 is 2 times 2 times 2. 4 is 2 times 2. 12 is 2 times 2 times 3. So again, I'm going to look at what they have in common. They have a 2 in common. They have another 2 in common. All three of them have that in common, right? So if I look then, what I'm going to have is the greatest common factor is 4. And then I'm going to take the 4 to find the least common multiple is the greatest common factor times what's left over, and there's a 2 and a 3 left over, so times 6. So that means the least common multiple equals 24. Now if I look, 12 times 2, because that's all that's left over for it. 12 times 2, so that means I have to multiply this by 2 over 2. And 8 times 3, so I got to multiply this by 3 over 3. 4 times 6, because that's what's left, what it doesn't have. So the 4 times the 6, so I got to multiply 6 over 6, which gives me negative 15 24ths plus 18 24ths. And then if I'm careful, I can see that this is plus positive 7 12ths, which is the same thing as plus 14 24ths. Now, I'm going to be really honest with you. I don't add all these together. I look at this and say, oh, if I have negative 15 and I'm adding 18, I go over, I go past 0. I'm going to land at 3. I'll be really honest with you. What I did was I looked at it and said negative 15 plus 3 plus 14, because that's a 0 pair. So I knew I had 3 plus 14, which gives me 17 24ths. 17 is a prime number. So I got 17 over 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. That's not going to simplify. It's positive. That's my answer. Okay, so if you're looking at these and you're thinking, "Oh my gosh, it's how wonderful!" If you're looking at this, that means you didn't understand it, because you're looking at this explanation knowing you didn't get 17 24ths, and you looked at it and you couldn't figure out why you didn't get 17 24ths. So you fast forward to figure out why it was 17 24ths. Hopefully, you took notes and you looked at your work and just said, here's where my mistake was, wrote yourself some notes how not to make that mistake, where to be careful. Now you figured it out. So you had to spend an extra 10 minutes to figure out where your mistakes were by watching this and writing it down, and then spend another 5 minutes to write down some things to help you understand. It was time well spent. If you already got it, and so in 15 minutes you had it all done, and you looked at that and said, "Ooh, I got it right." That's time well spent too, because now you know. And I want you to know you know. Because if you know, and I know you know, then we know you know. And you know that can't be bad. All right. Talk to you later. See you in class. Have fun.